that there. I don't even know how to kick this one off.
Man. I don't know what. Yeah. I'm blanking.
To the Grand Budapest.
The Grand Budapest.
The Grand Budapest.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah.
As Seth almost missed the button.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, it's good stuff. Good morning, afternoon, and or evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning back in and hanging out with us. As always, we're the Genesius guys. I'm Nick.
Filling in for Kyle, I'm Seth.
And I'm John.
And we're three Catholic dudes who love to talk about movies. This is the Genesius podcast.
You know, Kyle really wanted to be here today, but he told me he managed to get a room for two at the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Wow.
So
it's exciting.
He's very, very excited. Although
is that where they're going for their honeymoon?
Yeah. maybe. But
I heard they have a really nice honeymoon suite.
Actually, they're 1 star on Yelp.
Did you actually look it up?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I was wondering if you were to say what for, and I would have just been like bed bugs.
Bed bugs.
Wow.
Something like that. I don't think the
Grand
Budapest.
It was kind of deteriorated back.
Well, and that's
nowadays,
and that's an interesting. It'll be fun to talk about that. But yeah, we're talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I
want to say right off the bat that I freaking love this movie.
This was a lot of fun.
This was your first time.
This is my first Wes Anderson film. It was written
first Wes Anderson film.
It was my first one.
Yeah.
Wow, this was a good one to start with.
Yeah,
it's definitely not mine. I've seen a lot of his movies.
I've only seen that. Yeah, by the way, in case you didn't pick up on it, it's written and directed by Wes Anderson.
Oh.
But yeah, I've only seen the only Wes Anderson movies I've seen were this. I think this might have been my first one actually, and then I saw his two stop motion animated ones, which are Isle of Dogs.
And
which is okay.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
And Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is absolutely fantastic.
I've seen that one. I've seen also
both the animated ones are on Disney Plus, by the way.
Really?
Oh,
I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, that's how I got to watch those. But yeah, Fantastic Mr. Fox is very good, but not as good as this one.
So yeah, he also did
Moonrise Kingdom,
Bottle
Rocket.
I've seen
Bottle Rocket was his first one from like the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Life Aquatic, I think, is one.
Yeah, Life Aquatic. I've seen that one, and I've also seen Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh, I heard that one was good.
He also
French Dispatch was his most recent one.
There's also like Rushmore, right? Isn't that?
Yep, Rushmore is one.
I haven't seen that one either, but you can just tell based on like how he films, like what his like.
He has another one coming out this summer called, I think it's like Asteroid City or something.
Huh.
It looks very good.
But anyway, he's very iconic. Like Seth even for the first time watching it picked up on some of his.
Listeners, if you've ever watched a Wes Anderson movie, it's a very unique experience because like you can tell when he makes a movie. Mm-hmm. It's very different than anything most filmmakers do.
I want to say that at least in this film, and this feels like a characteristic of a lot of his movies, they almost feel like traditional in the way that they accomplish certain techniques. I'm thinking a lot about like slow motion, fast motion. They're doing a whole like ski scene in this movie.
Yeah.
And it looks like they
it's kind of like how silent films would have
it
done
looks like they slowed down the film stock, to accomplish
I know
this.
two also distinct things were, one, he uses practically no CGI in his movies.
Yeah.
On the wide shots of the hotel where you see like the cable cars.
It's matte paintings probably.
It's matte paintings and like little models.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like he has a very practical filmmaking style, which is awesome.
But it's also like one of the things is like there's a lot of pastels. There's a lot and but more
very
so
colorful.
His framing technique is very unique. Like it's very thoughtful.
He films in right angles too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like you'll have the camera panning one way, or like it'll film something that's like straight down. It'll be like straight on something, and then when the camera pans, it's very rarely at like anything between 0 and 90 degrees.
When he has a dynamic shot,
orthogonal.
when he has a dynamic shot that pans left or right, or even if it turns around, it's a 90-degree increment, like consistently, and it's really it's a very specific way that he shoots the film, and also he gives it a very toy-like aesthetic a lot of the time.
It feels like you're looking at a dollhouse because like he always like he'll move through walls and stuff to get different scenes and like they're walking through doors and stuff. And
shout out to Robert Yeoman, who was the cinematographer on this film. He did a really fantastic job. And I don't know when it comes to the Wes Anderson directing style, how much this is Wes Anderson driving things and how much the cinematographer is driving things, but
they probably work hand in hand a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine they have a very tight. I don't know if he does the like other films. Let me check here.
While you do that, so music is by Alexandre Desplat, I think his name is, who does a lot of the scores for Wes Anderson movies, but I actually know this particular composer from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. He did the music for those movies.
Yeah, that's a very different movie.
Also, I'm going to hop in and say that Robert Yeoman has done 9 films with Wes Anderson. So yes, they have a very...
And, well, Wes Anderson's, I think, has done 9 or 10 movies.
Yeah, so it may be that like...
so like once they found each other...
Robert Yeoman just maybe his cinematographer,
Let me check.
Right?
I did...
But he likes to work with a lot of the same people. Because like Nick has noted this, that like...
Yeah. 10 movies as of now.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson has done.
Yeah, so most of those have been Robert Yeoman. But yeah, a lot like Nolan, as you mentioned. He likes to use the same actors for a lot of his films. I mean, Inception was very close to a Batman cast, and I think Nolan has gone on record saying that if he could have gotten Christian Bale for Inception, he would have done it.
Wes Anderson is absolutely the same way. Like all of his movies have like Owen Wilson and
usually one of the other Wilsons.
Edward Norton. At least one of the Wilsons. Yeah. Edward Norton. Bill Murray is in a lot of them.
Yep.
Is he in Grand Budapest?
He is in Grand Budapest.
Yeah, he's one of the concierges.
Oh,
he's the one that picks him and Zero
dressed
up.
as a concierge, and you can't even say the word
concierge.
Yeah, he's the one that picks up Gustav and Zero before that whole thing at Gabelmeister's Peak. Which, by the way, is my favorite sequence in the whole movie. One of my favorite sequences in the entire movie.
The Society of Crossed Keys.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is such a. We'll get to that in a moment. We should go over the stats before we just dive into.
It came out on March 7th, 2014. Budget of $25 million. It's a very modest budget, and it shows.
He works with impressive,
but it's used effectively.
Yeah.
And it made like 7 times that in the box office.
Yeah, it's a very successful film, I would imagine. And also, didn't it win like 4 Academy Awards or something like that?
I don't know, but
it definitely won.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, hold on. I can look. I've got the Wikipedia.
All right. Rotten Tomatoes. Critics gave it a 92 with an audience score of 86.
Still really high.
Yeah, very high. Like this, like I know a friend of ours, Grant O'Neill, is a huge Wes Anderson fan, and he says this is the best one out of all of them.
From the ones that I've seen, I like this one the most. That's why I picked it.
Rotten Tomatoes consensus says, typically stylish, but deceptively thoughtful. The Grand Budapest Hotel finds Wes Anderson once again using ornate visual environments to explore deeply emotional ideas.
Yeah. So the USCCB's classification is A3 for adults. It's a writer-director Wes Anderson's triumph of smug artifice over substance and storytelling is likely to please his fans. But his saga of a European concierge.
Ray Fiennes.
Concierge. I am not French. I'm sorry. Don't
make me take away your USCCB consensus privileges.
Ralph Fiennes, who dreams of lost grandeur, mentors a hobby boy, Tony.
The lobby boy.
I'm taking away your privileges. Mentors a lobby boy.
You did say hobby boy.
A lobby boy played by Tony Revolori, I think it's called.
Yeah, Revolori.
Revolori.
He plays Flash in the new Spider-Man movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's that same actor.
You're right. In all the fine points of elegant catering to guests,
He's better in this movie, in my opinion.
And romances his hotel's aging female clientele. Recounted like a fable, is without a moral or even a clear ending. Implied, but benignly treated, non-marital and premarital sexual encounters. Fleeting upper female nudity, a smattering of rough and crass language. This is rated A3 for adults.
So yeah,
and it's rated R.
That was something that like I didn't actually think about before selecting this movie. I forgot that it's very short, but there is like a little bit of nudity.
It kind of went over my head at first, and I'm just like, oh, there it is.
Well, and there's only one thing in there specifically that's troubling, and it's basically a piece of pornographic artwork, which later on in the film gets smashed by another character.
It's played as a joke.
It's played as a joke.
It is totally played as a joke.
Very like
the funniest part about it is when one of the characters smashes it later. John and I were both like, nice.
Yeah.
It deserved to be smashed.
Absolutely.
It's awful. I think the joke is that it is awful.
Yeah. Hang on a second. I gotta grab something.
Go for it. But yeah, this film, to me at least, it was incredibly fun to watch. I love all of the comedy that is delivered. It's both subtle and not subtle.
I took notes.
Like the best thing is the scene can be played completely straight, but the comedy is still evident.
So yeah, I would definitely say it's witty, but like in a different way than I would say that like Iron Man. Mm-hmm. It's very much like, it seems like a sophisticated kind of witty banter.
Right, but I also have to say, this movie is also very funny.
Yeah,
this is a really funny movie.
Very fun. Like I would. Like, is it considered a comedy? I would definitely like.
I would. I don't know if. That's a good question, actually. I don't know if this is like genred as a comedy. I certainly would, because I laughed out loud multiple times.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are some really funny jokes in here.
Well, and the thing is, like, it's similar to like Iron Man, but like where they say it like so fast, you don't quite recognize how much of a joke it is until like a second later.
It's fast and it's like very monotone.
Yeah.
Which you'll find in like all of like most Wes Anderson works.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very flatline, but like, and like some would say like, oh, well, flatline tone, like it's not like it doesn't work. It's like for this particular style, it absolutely works.
But like Ralph Fiennes completely nails this role. Like completely. Like I'm just like
this.
The only thing I've seen of Deathly Hallows.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because he plays Voldemort, but like this is like
this is not
very,
Voldemort.
Very different character.
Yeah. Well,
but Gustav also, I think, has some of the funniest quotes.
Oh,
I wrote down a few of them too.
Literally, one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is the police showing up to the hotel, and he goes, Madame D was murdered.
You
think I did it? And there's just this pause, and you think he's about to say something very sophisticated.
To have like an alibi or something.
And he just turns around and sprints. And
on like a set, by the way.
Yeah.
It was
so funny.
Literally, like I died laughing at that moment.
I died laughing at the moment. It's because they divide this movie into 5 distinct parts. Mm. It's in the 5th part when they're all on the 6th floor. Actually, a couple moments when they're all shooting each other
for no reason.
No. So one of them was when Ed Norton comes out, and he's just like what's going on here? And Dimitri's just like, oh, that's a vision of Gustav H. And then Gustav goes like, that's the guy who murdered Madame D and something. And then there's a pause, and then Ed Norton goes, I wrote down the quote. He just says, "Nobody move. Everyone's under arrest."
He's just so overwhelmed.
It's followed with Zero, where he goes up to a hotel door and says, "Do not disturb." So he just like he knocks on it, and he doesn't know what to do. So he runs back because he's gonna like knock the door.
Run into it.
And he runs up and runs into it, but the guy opens the door, he runs straight through and like
right out the window.
Out the window, off the balcony.
And also, can we talk about the fact that the whole gunfight that's happening on the 6th floor is just for no reason whatsoever, other than 2 people started shooting at each other?
Yeah, and then it's just everyone, because they're all, well, okay, it's World War I, but it's like they're basically Nazis and they're just all shooting at each other because
like
somebody's shooting.
Everyone just opened their door and they just pull out guns. And I lost it. That was so funny.
So the thing was like, that I find really interesting is it's like, they definitely like that. If you take just the storyline just straight, it could be like this very like dramatic, emotional thing of like,
right.
Like, cause at the time that it was happening, it's like Europe was at war with each other. And they're like this
which they allude to, like throughout the course of the movie.
But like because it's done in such a way, it's like so comedic. It makes it lighthearted.
Well, and I think it's funny that you say like if the story is played straight because, well, as we figure out pretty fast, it's a story within a story within a story within a story.
Well, but the thing is like I think this was done like one of the reasons I picked this is because like I think Wes Anderson is like an amazing director because like I pointed out this clue because I didn't notice it the first time I watched it and then like the second time. So each story has its own frame.
Yeah.
So like one of them's like widescreen, and then it goes like a little bit to a different one, and then it goes to like the
aspect ratio is different depending on what part of the movie you're like, what time period you're focusing on.
Yeah. Yep.
It's very cool. It's such a brilliant movie.
You know,
and it's really done in like a way that you can tell that like the narrator is like hearing the story from the guy because like it even shows like chapters and it like Wes Anderson is very much about like what is it, like tangible things that he puts like and he frames it in that way of like the letters. He'll show like the actual letter on the screen and you can read it and like he has all these different like
he has an absurd attention to detail when it comes to establishing the tone of his film and how he presents it to an audience. Like the way that shots are framed, like we've already talked about. The way he frames things, the way things are lit, it's presented in this very like magically almost fairy tale-esque kind of way.
Well, that's how Mustafa, who is Zero, like that's how he sees this whole thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's actually a good point.
And can we also just mention like when he talks about his wife, who, by the way, has a birthmark on her face in the shape of Mexico.
Yes.
It's such an absurd detail.
The thing is, like, it's there the entire time, and, like, the only comment is, like...
from Gustav himself.
Yeah, mentions that it's on there, just as, like, a throw-off line. And then, like, no...
It's never alluded to again. It's just, like... It's like when Rhodey walks in Iron Man, in the courtroom in Iron Man 2. Hey... It's there. Deal with it.
Yes. Well, and you make a good point about this being from Zero's perspective, right? Mm-hmm. Because in a lot of ways, the character of Gustav is very eccentric and he's very overdramatic. And this would make sense if it's Zero now having grown up who is recollecting this somewhat hazy memory of this very eccentric man.
Well, he's definitely like put on a pedestal in a way. Like he's idealized in his memory of
like
him.
Gustav is like a father figure to him.
He's because his parents died.
Yep.
And, like that is a very dramatic part of like finding his backstory of like, oh, the reason he's there is because he's an immigrant because his entire family died in a war.
And he doesn't reveal this to Gustav at first. And the funny thing is it works because the kind of person Gustav is, if Zero had told him this up front, Gustav wouldn't have given a crap about it.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
you would have been like, okay, go wash dishes or something, you know. But the
I'm thinking of that where he's talking about like, should I light it? And he's like, no, interview right now. And then as soon as he does something, he's just like, light the damn candle.
Yeah. So did you start out as a bellboy? Go light the candle.
But that was a really interesting way of finding about that character, like all the different things and like how the different characters relate. I think one of the things that stands out to me is it's like Gustav is like, this is his career. Like he is made to be a concierge.
It's his life. And it's interesting how Zero himself says that Gustav is trying to preserve this opulence because the Grand Budapest Hotel is kind of the last of its sort of hotel. It's the last of its kind.
Well, just one quick comment. He did say that like even at that time, he was like of a previous time.
Yeah, he was of a previous time. And in a sense, he's trying to preserve it, right?
Get your hands off my lobby boy.
Well, and there's obviously a tragic aspect to that line. But
yes, absolutely.
at least from the way I see it, Zero kind of sees Gustav as the god, if you will, of the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Even to the point where like Gustav gave sermons to
I cracked up.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen this before, but like that's still got me because I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And then amusingly, at one point, Zero has the spiritual son of the god delivers this message to them that is basically just another sermon, right?
Yeah.
And so there's
and then when the poetry starts, he's like, you can eat now. This is
it's like this is like 46. It's like 46 stanzas.
So you should
just start the soup.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, yes, of course, Gustav is put on a pedestal. I think it's more than that. In some ways, he kind of sees Gustav as like the deity, the spirit of what this bygone age was of this opulence in hotels. And so it's interesting to see that lens through which it's presented. And of course, Gustav himself, incredibly eccentric character who's, amorally sleeping with his own clientele.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you get the sense that he's a very selfish person, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's so
well, you definitely see that he is a flawed human being.
Oh yeah. No,
he's like what he finds the most important is like his clientele and like
his perfume.
His role and his perfume and his
perfume
and his wine
perfume.
and his he very much likes all of
He's very vain.
Yes.
Like he did he even it's said more than once to like, and like to quote exactly, like he like, and these are the kind of women he seeks out: insecure, vain, superficial, blonde, needy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
that's him too, except maybe the blonde part.
Well, they even like mentioned that towards the end that he becomes his own clientele.
Yeah.
Well, and interestingly, man, I had a thought and it disappeared again. No, like when they were on the train, right? So when they're on the train the first time and they get stopped, and Henkels, the detective, right, the chief of police.
Before you go on, the train, like in the first like wide shot of like the train traveling when they're first going, is when I've told you that I have this like massive like playlist of like movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
This movie's soundtrack is on there because I love the soundtrack for this movie. Like, I don't know, like I just listen to it. I'm just like, yeah, especially the sequence when the whole sequence when they're on Gabelmeister's Peak. But you finish your thought first, but I do want to talk about that particular sequence because there's some good stuff.
Well, when they're on the train and Henkels, the chief of police, kind of stops them from being harassed, there's this very interesting moment, and that is that Henkels remembers Gustav, because when Henkels was a boy, Gustav was a person that showed him kindness in some way, as a part of Gustav doing his job, right? And so, interestingly, the way Gustav sees all these relationships, they are tools for him, right? He doesn't seem to actually genuinely value those relationships that he's made. He knows that they're important, and he's more than willing to take advantage of them when it helps him out.
Until Zero.
What's like a relationship of utility?
Yes. Yeah. And until Zero.
Yeah,
right?
Until Zero comes along.
Zero, who is so deeply loyal to him, and not perfect. I should point out, he's not even perfect in doing his job, but he is perfect in all the ways that matter to Gustav. And so in that sense, his loyalty earns back Gustav's loyalty, and probably what is the only time that Gustav sticks his neck out for anyone, and then he's even like, I need to approve of this woman you're seeing, and then Zero just goes, don't flirt with her, because he knows her. Yeah, he knows her. He knows. Yeah,
because he flirts with all the women. Yeah.
So
I do think there is something to be said though. Like I know he is like a very, very flawed character. But but I think it says something about like how he actually cares about his clientele. I know it's like out of utility overall, but like he has a unique gift of being able to understand his clientele to the point of like realizing what they need before they even ask for it.
Yeah.
Which is something that's like all of us can kind of do to a certain extent of like for the relationships in our life of like trying to like understand each other's needs. And like I think that's just a way of like people being cared for that is very unique that like they don't get anywhere else in their life really. Especially, I mean, like these older women that are probably widows and
yeah. So yeah, I wanted to touch on the sequence on the mountain, Gabelmeister's Peak, because it's one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie. Just
okay.
Well,
with the whole like the
are you Mr. Gustav of the Grand Budapest Hotel? Yes. And then it's like, do this, and it happens like three or 4 times, and then they get to the top of the peak. They get to the monastery where it's like I'll put this on and sing, and they sing like they sing a Kyrie essentially as they're walking in, and as they like sit down, the one guy leans into him. Are you Monsieur Gustav of the Grand Budapest? Yes. And then it's like confess, and then he starts confessing. He's like no. He just points to the back, and then he goes to the back, and of course, like it's the guy who like who actually did the crime that he's being framed for.
Well,
no, he didn't do it.
No, he didn't do it.
Yeah,
the hitman did it.
The hitman did it.
William Dafoe did it.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, yes.
So
you're
it's
right.
the guy who's trying to get away so he doesn't die. He's trying to go hide, and that's where he's hiding.
Wait, but like it said it earlier in the movie that it's like some guy like
that was the hitman. So I'm pretty sure.
No, so the whole point of them trying to find him is that
because he had the second copy of the second will.
Yes,
he is the person who knows what's going on.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So Willem Dafoe's character, who by the way is like genuinely menacing in some key ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's not Green Goblin menacing.
No,
but from the get-go, he has like the rings on, and you're just like, okay.
Well,
and he's the muscle.
John, those aren't rings; those are brass knuckles.
Well, but they weren't connected, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they were.
I don't know. The one thing that I wanted to point out is that when the movie needed to turn to suspense, the museum scene, it was incredibly effective. Like I was on the edge of my seat, just like, holy crap, where's this guy gonna be?
Well, and that was like one of the few characters who's actually had morals, and that he's like, no, like this is my role.
And then there's Willem Dafoe who just tosses his cat out the window.
Yeah. I do not. Okay. This is like the weirdest part. Like he just goes and gets the dead cat for some reason.
I was wondering. I was waiting for that.
But like he gets the dead cat, and then he's getting chased, so he just like throws it in the trash.
He literally just throws it away. I think that to me is. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like if you would want to bury your dead cat, which by the way, the cat probably could have survived that fall. Maybe?
Probably.
Those cats could. I wonder if it got like run over or something. But
I mean, I think there's like a sweet spot apparently where if you throw them from that height, they can't do it.
Actually,
but I can't remember.
No, he's.
I'm kind of serious. I think there is. I can't remember though, so I'm not going to push it.
Look, I mean, I know I'm tangenting back to that, to the mountain peak sequence, but as sacrilegious as this is, the confessional scene is very funny. Like it's he's trying to get, and then Gustav is just like, and there's some language in here, but he's like, he is like, and he's like starting to get stressed out. He's just like, he just screams, just someone tell me what the is going on.
Yeah. Because he's just like completely like, I've been going all this way.
And then he stops. And then of course, Willem Dafoe, he puts on skis. And
Gustav, when he's actually going to say what's going to happen, he dies. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
And then he opens the other door.
He escapes, but it's like it's just this whole 2 or 3 minute sequence of skiing and tobogganing, and then it's like, oh, here's the Gablemeister Winter Games or something, and then like go off the ski jump, and then with ski jump, which goes into a luge track, and then just the wide shots of like what is probably little toys just being like sped up. It's
it's probably stop motion.
Yeah, the camera's it's either stop motion or the camera's being under cranked, and then they're speeding that up.
It's especially funny when they get to the end of it where Willem Dafoe goes out to the side and the sled jumps off. It's just like
yeah, it's so quick you like miss it.
and it just ends with like that whole thing ends in the best way where Willem Dafoe's character, I already forgot his name.
Yeah, he's about to
he's just a hitman.
He's just like
muscle.
He's stomping on the cliff
to break the
ice, and Gustav's just hanging on the ledge. And he's just like lamenting. He's going through poetry. And then Zero pushes him off. And then Gustav goes, holy you got him.
Yeah.
But it was like, the thing was like, okay. It's almost like the motion kind of fits the whole like really quippy fast humor.
Yeah.
It was just like you blink and you would miss that he like hit him. Yeah. And he's like, wait, what? You had to like process what happened.
Well, and also I like the motion of him falling of this guy falling off the cliff is rather amusing in and of itself, just because of how frantic the motion looks. Everything
and it's so cartoonic because like Zero's feet were just like sticking out of the ground.
They're just sticking comically straight out of the ground.
Yes.
And then out of nowhere, just boom, he's up and he's out.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
This is such a great movie.
You know, the funny thing about this movie, and not even necessarily funny, but like the powerful thing about this movie is that I did not understand my emotional attachment to the story until its ending.
Yeah.
Because
you're right.
It's so, it really sneaks up on you in a lot of ways. And when they're actually getting to the end of the movie here and the plot is getting resolved, and there's the scene where Gustav basically sacrifices himself to protect Zero and his now wife, right? Like that's a really like that's when you kind of feel like this fairy tale that they've been a part of has just abruptly ended, right? And reality is set in. And Zero even talks about like, even though he married this wonderful woman, like she and their newborn kid died like 3 years later, right?
Yeah. Because of a disease.
An absurd disease.
What was it called?
I don't like. It was something really
obscure. Yeah.
It's something super obscure, but like he's just like it's an absurd disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like you get the sense that part of the dreaminess, if you will, of this whole plot is because this guy is looking back on probably what are the most notable few years,
like
of
the
his
best
life.
time of his life.
Yeah. And he has this romanticizing of the whole deal. And who knows if that was the actual story, right? In a certain sense.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a story that's being like, it's this woman reading a book where this narrator is telling the audience about a story that this guy is telling them. It's a story within a story within a story within a story.
And the other thing I'll point out is supposedly when he wrote the book was at least like a decade after he actually visited the hotel.
Oh, yeah. No, he's much older.
Yeah. So even that, right? This story has been through so many lenses that in a lot of ways.
And can we also point out that like the actor who played Zero is like he looks very Italian, and the adult Zero is a white British man.
No.
F. Murray Abram? That's who plays the adult Zero.
That's not the vibe I got.
I did not get that vibe either.
Sure you're not thinking of the author of the book?
No, I'm talking about Zero.
Because that was Jude Law.
The author was Jude Law.
Yeah,
but I don't know who the... Okay.
No, it's the actor who plays Mr. Mustafa. Like, he's talking to Jude Law.
Like, with that kind of name, I was like, he seems like Italian or like that kind of...
I mean, I could be wrong, but like the actor... No, like, I'm saying like the actor, as far as I know, like he's like, is a white dude. an older white dude.
Sure.
Fun fact: he voiced Khonshu in the Moon Knight series.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Random side note, just because
That's what this podcast is.
Yeah. It might as well be called random side. But
At random side notes.
A random side note within a random side note within a random side note.
The beginning of this movie, though, the older author, how he's like interrupted by his kids, made me totally think of like COVID and Zoom calls, you know, where the kids like constantly interrupt them. It was like the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's the same vibe,
It's just
man.
like, oh my God.
You're totally right.
I mean, the thing I know about Wes Anderson is like everything that's in his movie is there for a reason. But that was one I couldn't understand, where it's like he's narrating this story, and then the kid like has like a pop gun. He goes like, "No, stop that!" And then the kid just comes up and he goes, "I'm sorry, it's all right." Anyway,
yeah, like he
I'm
has this
guessing
aside.
he just has kids of his own, and that he has that all the time.
I suppose.
The
Yeah.
surprising thing about that whole moment is just how natural that feels.
Yeah.
Like from a parenting perspective, right?
I guess like when you think of it in terms of a movie, it feels really jarring. But if you think about like, yeah, if it's like a reality, like it's like, no, that's like this kind of thing. It has a more authentic feel.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing to put in mind here. He didn't have to put that in there. That has no utility.
It has no relevance
on the
to
story.
The story. Yeah.
It's just there. And I imagine that it probably makes the audience feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
it's such a
and
it's a strange
it
thing.
kind of sets how the mood of the film is, right?
Yeah.
That's like you're going to get interrupted. There's going to be weird random things that happen, and it's going to be this quick kind of just like, okay, like it's not super serious, because like I could see like going into it if it's like the serious thing of like, oh, like this thing and then that thing happened, and I don't know. It just sets it up as being a comedy.
I wrote down a couple of quotes too. There's only like two more, but like both of them Gustav quotes. One of them was at the beginning when he's talking with, by the way, that old lady was Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, that's right. I read that.
And like
I didn't notice it.
well, yeah, the makeup was so good.
It was really good, yeah.
But like when she's leaving, she's just like, I think this is the last time I'm going to see you. And then she's leaving, and it's the first time that Gustav and Zero are interacting. And it's like, she hasn't acted like this before. She was shaking like a dog.
What a line that is. That was
his descriptions are just so unique for like everything.
it highlights how eccentric his
And
character
then when
is.
he's in the prison,
See,
there was a set of dialogue in the prison that I that I didn't even notice until I watched this time around, and that made me laugh out loud. But it's when they're like planning their escape, and one of like the four other criminals goes like, "Mr. Gustav, we think you are a straight man," and then Gustav just goes, "I've never been accused of that before."
Well, especially since like earlier.
Yeah.
It's like when you really
They
think about it, it's like
obviously
that's a
they mean it-
really well executed joke.
They mean it one way, and like he takes it the other.
That's so funny.
But I think one of the things that like I find really unique is it's like even when he's in prison, he is still
He's
the
still
same
the concierge.
person.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
he's
so
so true to himself. Like he knows he's like, I'm gonna act exactly the same way to these people, even if like I'm in a prison and there are like other prisoners.
And like the
here.
big muscly dudes respect him.
Yes.
This is the best part. When the son is reading the message, the good news of the father, so to speak. Which is what this is what this feels like. When it cuts to him, like when it cuts to Ralph Fiennes, Gustav, like narrating this letter, he's got the entire prison behind
Surrounding.
him. He's literally surrounded, like with
guards.
the choirs of
It's
angels almost. So it like to me the God imagery is even more.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it sounds a little sacrilegious, but it's like having this story being told from Zero's perspective, like
It makes sense.
like the way the movie is shot is very much shows how much Zero absolutely idolizes this guy.
yeah.
Well, it's something that's like it. I feel like that's one of the few authentic relationships he had.
Yeah.
So that's why he idolizes it.
Well, and despite the fact that Gustav himself was like, and actually Gustav himself was a fairly authentic person, right? He didn't,
yeah.
It's not that he really put up.
Well,
any
he
fronts.
knows his weaknesses and he's okay.
Well, but I love the fact that Zero at very critical moments stands up to Gustav in ways that Gustav like 1,000% respects.
Like, don't flirt with her.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
flirt, like yeah, because there's an interesting sense of respect.
Is he
between
flirting with you?
them. Yes. Yeah. That was so good.
This,
but he
it's so
recognizes
good.
like her
He recognizes her beauty.
her beauty and like what she's good at too, and like I do think
When they're hiding the small digging tools in the food, where it's like
they cut up everything.
cutting up everything. They open these and it's like they're clearly shaped like digging tools, and he's just like, let him go.
Well,
but they're so beautiful. Like,
yeah,
why
they're
would I
so
cut
well
them?
constructed. They were well known.
But one of the things that like I found funny every single time was like just how much like, even though he's in this like prison uniform and he's like has so much what would you call it, like dignity or something.
Yeah. Like no matter what he's dressed in, that's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
a suit. He's just like,
And then he's like, please pass the throat slitter. And then he's just like makeshift knife that like is clearly used for like trying to kill other inmates.
Well, the most interesting part to me is that he doesn't get a piece, right? Everyone else gets a piece.
Yeah.
He does not get a piece. So
That's the thing that like as much as like how many things that he does like as utility and whatnot, it's like I think he does genuinely care for his clients.
yeah,
oh,
like,
he absolutely does.
And like he cares about these other like prisoners, and even though like in the end they wind up just abandoning him.
Gustav is a fascinating character because like he cares about. He's a very caring person, but he's so vain.
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I know I said earlier that he doesn't necessarily care about his relationships except for utility, but when you look at how he exercises his passion, you get the sense that he cares about providing people the best experience.
And that
Yes.
shows when he's
Yes.
when he's interviewing Zero, like
Yeah.
all the guys are like all the staff is just like showing him something, and he's just like solution kind of
he's
thing.
the guy that
Well, he's definitely got respect
yeah.
from the house, and one of the things that like he goes to show that's like I think people can relate to this, especially maybe like probably previous generations from us, but of just like I think there was like a certain work ethic that is not quite the same that it is now. That like it goes to show with this like previous time of like even when he goes to his own hotel, he's just like yeah, the concierge is who knows where he is, I'll just take over for him. And I think that is something that I do find respectful of, like at least at the job that I work now. Like how the owner of the company is still willing to do the grunt work, similar to how Zero owns the hotel and it's just like, you know what, I'll still be the concierge for this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like that's what he's trying to do. I will say I find it interesting that Gustav does not have opulent quarters, right?
Oh,
he still has a
and
hotel
Zero
room.
still goes back to his old quarters.
Yeah, he goes to his servant quarters. That was that was an interesting.
Yeah.
But Gustav
Right,
has
yeah.
like a tiny little table where he's having like a bowl of oatmeal and some milk or whatever it is.
Well, it's kind of like
He has a very modest approach to actual like the basics, right?
I think that goes to show, like, I think he was from a poor community, or like I don't think he was born into wealth. I think he had to like work up.
Zero
Or Gustav.
Well, Gustav
Yeah,
says as much.
yeah.
Because he has very
That's true.
opulent taste, but it's like because of what his job.
Well, and
versus,
he eventually says that he started as a lobby boy, which is
Yeah,
what
yeah.
Zero
he
had
said,
originally asked
"I was the
him.
best lobby boy till now." Basically,
That's high praise from him.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I think that was something as well. Like, I think a lot of people, because he said, does he actually say like, "I'm proud of you" at some point?
Yeah, I believe he does. Yeah.
You know, I would say probably one of the most interesting ideas about this movie, and I know this permeates a lot of Wes Anderson work, is the idea of nostalgia and how that drives a story. And
it romanticizes a story.
It romanticizes a memory. And it really made me reflect on when I, God willing, if I, whenever I'm 70, 80, whatever, or even like turning 50 or 60, right? What parts of my life am I going to look back on and romanticize? and remember in this kind of strange, dreamy font. Like, John, am I going to look back at living at the house, right, with all of us, all 5 of us dudes, and like
I'm not one of them, by the way.
Sorry,
that's okay. I stop there frequently enough where I think I'm an honorary member.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. You're definitely like one of the circle, right? But no, am I going to look back on that and romanticize that time of living there, right? Because there have definitely been like moments living there that I'm not proud of personally on my end. But
it's growing time.
Yeah, but it's like
growing time.
It's its own vibe, and I think at some point, we have these times in our lives, and then we look back at them and we tend to romanticize them, and that's really what this movie feels like. Is this guy who is the embodiment, and he's living inside of this dying relic. Right, this hotel that later, gets demolished not a year or two later, after he tells his story, and the sort of the power of memory that goes along with that. So in that sense, right, that's where the emotion snuck up on me. This is a guy who is retelling what he feels is the prime of his life. In this way, because after Gustav passes and the hotel comes to him, he knows that he is not Gustav, right? He can't quite do
what Gustav
did. And also the times have changed, right? And so like the Grand Budapest Hotel itself was at the ending events of the story taken over by the military. And so even after that, like that hotel can't just walk away from something like that and return to business as usual. That very likely affected the business prospects.
Well, if you think about granted it's a long span of time, but like how there was in Europe's past of having different classes, of having like the higher end class and like the lower class, and them getting the higher class and lower class and them coming a lot closer together.
Yeah.
It kind of like diminishes something that would be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's to me at least, by the time the movie ended and I realized I was actually like feeling something from the story, it was surprising to me, and I credit that a lot to how Wes writes and shoots this movie with the cinematographer, and how these stories have this kind of like dream-like quality to them. So it was a very fun movie. It's presented in a very fun way, at least for someone like me that really has that eye for cinematography and appreciates the good stuff when it comes by.
So what would you score it?
What would I score it? Honestly, I would score it like, I maybe not as high as you would think. I'm going to give it an 83.
Oh,
okay.
I think it's a fantastic movie. I don't think it has particularly deep, poignant meaning. I think it just says something about the power of memory and how we romanticize things.
That's pretty deep and poignant, though.
It is, but maybe not on the same level as something like Arrival, which has a lot of really fantastic symbolism and stuff looped into it and presents it in, I would argue, an even more compelling way. Because this is a very linear story. And even though the presentation of the chapters is really impressive, it's not quite innovative in that sense. Mm-hmm. So I really like it. Up at the 85. I'll give it a couple more. I'll throw it a couple more.
John?
I would say similar. Like, I do like a lot more thoughtful movies than probably this. I just felt like, given that we had done Arrival earlier, and then I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? I just want a fun movie. And this one is definitely a fun movie.
It is very fun.
Just because I've seen it a couple of times and I really like it. I'm actually going to give it a 90.
All right.
So it's not like, because there is definitely things that take away from it. Like, I think there shouldn't be any nudity and stuff like that. Like,
I was really tempted to give this 100.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are a couple things in here I'm just like, look, I would, if they would have played some of the things that were not good, if they had portrayed them as not good, like Truman Show, I gave 100 because it's like the whole playing God thing they very much portrayed it as this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was a big factor as to why I gave it 100% score.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I want to do to this one, I do have to take away some points. Yeah, because of the whole, like, some of the nudity stuff. And like, yeah, the confessional scene, as funny as it is, it's pretty sacrilegious.
Yeah.
But I still want to give it a high score.
Yeah.
So I think I would give it a 96.
Okay.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that leaves us to an overall Genesius score of
96, 90,
91.
85.
probably 92 or 3.
90.
90.
Oh, just 90.
Just straight up
Okay.
90.
90 and a third, but round
well,
seven.
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that works. That works for this movie.
Yeah. It's a solid movie. I really enjoy it. It's
a
maybe
lot-
not the most poignant, but
It
I
is
appreciate
it's a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a very funny movie.
Yeah. And I appreciate very much how it relates to the power of memory.
I do find this funny. Like, I actually really, really like thoughtful and like deep movies. And for some reason, both of my picks have just been like comedy.
I mean, this one's it's not maybe thought provoking.
Kids.
Oh gosh.
So in other words, the next one you're picking is 12 Angry Men?
Are you gonna pick another movie that is dull, dumb, and disappointing?
I don't think this
The
one
Phantom
was.
Menace in 3D.
this one was. Look, I think I don't know. I think Phantom Menace deserves a little more credit these days.
Honestly, I genuinely, I kid. I'm with you. It wasn't that bad.
I mean, the Book of Boba Fett, as much as you hated it, brought back the N1.
Phantom Menace is better.
Oh, I agree.
Oh, good.
On some on some respect.
Yes.
To some respect, I do agree. But like we got the return of the N1, and it was even cooler than it already was.
We managed not to talk about Star Wars for
So
most of this
you know what had
And
better writing?
and we did, well, I guess we did talk a little Star Wars in
Briefly.
a retrospective, but yeah.
Just think if Star Wars had the dialogue that this movie does.
Have you seen the Wes Anderson? Have you ever seen the
Goodness.
Star Wars Wes Anderson trailer that went on YouTube?
I put that a link in our chat.
That's right, you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was very funny.
I'll show you later.
Okay.
It's very
It's-
impressive.
it's
I
fantastic.
definitely did not see that, but
All right. Anyway,
Yeah, thank you guys. This is an awesome discussion. I got really
John,
excited. to
thank
talk
you for
about this.
picking this movie.
Yeah, good work, John.
This was a good pick.
And thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in to this episode of the Genesius podcast. If you enjoy our content, you want to see or hear more from us, please subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcasting platform you use. You can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Breath. You can also find us on YouTube. Our handle is @Genesius Podcast, where you can see the shenanigans we get up to as well. Some pretty cool Lego sets.
Like the helmets behind Seth.
And actually, it's right behind the cameras, the Hogwarts castle this time.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Nick?
Yeah, and if you would like us to talk about a movie you enjoy or some movie-related topic you would like us to discuss here on the podcast, if you want to provide feedback to help us make our show better, or you just need us to pray for you for any reason, even if you want to give us a prayer shout out here on the show, send us an email at genesiuspodcast@gmail.com. That's GENESIUS podcast, breath, @gmail.com.
Nice.
Additionally, if you want to make an appearance on our show as a guest, make sure you know one of us three personally. Make sure you've listened to an episode of the podcast, which if you've gotten this far, it means you already have. So good job. And reach out to one of us directly or email us at genesiuspodcast@gmail.com.
Finally, please spread the word about the Genesius podcast, whether it be on social media or word of mouth. If you're listening, turn to whoever you're in proximity to.
Hey, John.
What?
Breath.
Okay.
Have you heard about the Genesius podcast?
No, what is it?
It's a podcast for 3 Catholic dudes talk about movies.
Is that the one that's like Marvel in a year versus Marvel in a year?
Marvel in a year. That'd be great, actually. There's almost enough content. If we did it every other week, we could do it. MCU in a year.
I will credit Katie with that one though.
That's
But-
good. That's good.
Okay.
Nice job, Katie. That was awesome.
Or shoot a text to all your friends, family, and coworkers about our podcast, whether it be right at this moment, at a family dinner, at a work meeting, or on date night.
Don't flirt with her.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please tell them about us and please pray for us as we continue to create content and use our gifts to give glory to God.
All right. I think an appropriate thing in light of this movie, I think, Seth, you talked a lot about like romanticizing the past. I think something we can pray for is to keep in memory a lot of the blessings that we've had in our life, but also to acknowledge some of the struggles and trials that we have to face, and not necessarily romanticize them, but like acknowledge them as they happened.
Yeah.
And not to say that not to say like, and like, obviously like people feel different things about that, but like feeling like the way you feel about something is always valid. Like it might not necessarily be like, it might not necessarily be in line with what happened, but like, you know, hurt is still very real. So just being able to acknowledge blessings, but also being able to acknowledge the hurts and the trials that we experience.
Yeah. I think along that same regard of not letting the trials of our life, similar to this movie of the bad things that have happened, to not focus too much on that. Like, sorry, to like not be ingrained in the bad things of our life, but to see the blessings and
live joyfully.
Exactly.
John, you want to pray for us today?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that you have given us. Help us to also accept the trials and temptations that you have given to us, and to not focus on the past, but to move forward in your light, and to bring light to those around us, to see their needs and help them through that, and also care for each of the people around us in our life. And the month of Mary, let's pray to our mother. Hail Mary,
full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Genesius, pray for us.
Yeah, I think very poignant to bring up Mary, who, per the mysteries of the Rosary, carried a lot of memories in her heart as she saw her son suffer.
Man.
So,
yeah. Beautiful. That was beautiful, John. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And John and Seth, as always, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for hosting.
Of course. And listeners and viewers, thank you for hanging out with us. We'll be back next Friday at noon, where we will be talking about the first movie in our next franchise, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
But until then, we are the Genesius guys. I'm Nick.
Filling in for Kyle, I'm Seth.
I'm John.
And this is the Genesius Podcast. God bless everyone.